Hey, can you hear me?
Yay, what's up?
What's up, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Well, man. Oh my goodness, the amount of people that have wanted me to debate you, man, is ridiculous.
Yeah, there are a lot of people on TikTok that I've been meaning to I don't know, get to. Because the YouTube, I feel like I've done YouTube, you know? I gotta spread my wings and fly. So many people to talk to. So many people online who care about politics, you know?
Facts. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to do that the opposite way, right? Because I'm on TikTok and I'm like, I feel like I got to go over to the YouTube side. I remember this thing like where people were like, oh, you're gonna debate Nick Videos, and back when Nick Videos was actually like relevant and everybody like liked him on the conservative side.
Oh yeah,
Everyone's
he
like,
pussied
oh,
out
you're gonna debate
massively.
Nick Videos.
So it was a
Did
beta
he? I don't
move.
know. I don't know exactly what happened there.
Now, I can tell you because it's kind of funny. So he was all gung ho about debating me. Phenomenal. I love debating, but he was nice to me in person. You know, great. Then he takes his break from politics, doesn't want to debate no more, and then he comes back and he's like a Nazi, but he's too busy to debate me now because of college. But he debates other people. I think what happened was he kind of had his little Groyper awakening, and he didn't. You know, once he realized his positions were indefensible, he didn't want to actually test them against me, and now he's having fun.
You know what's interesting is that I don't think he immediately came back supporting the whole Groyper shit. I think that like he's totally like I'm not saying I dislike him personally, just politically I
Hmm.
can't stand the guy, right? Because like he flip-flops so often. Now look, if someone legitimately changes your views on something, it's like okay, that's fine. But this man went from a hardcore Trump supporter to being anti-Trump to then going to being part of like I guess the classical liberal hype house, I think he was, if I'm not mistaken. And then it's like, no, well now I'm a griper, and it's just like, motherfucker, pick your side, bro. You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess a lot of kids are like that, right? Isn't he like super young? A lot of kids they're like
No, not
15.
like him.
They're
Not
like,
like that.
well, maybe, but they're like, because I see this is like 15 years old, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a Strasserist, and yesterday I was a
Oh
anarcho-Maoist,
no,
and the
that's
day
fair.
before that,
That's fair. He's
yeah.
eight, he's I believe he's 18 though, to be fair.
Okay, we're all. I think everyone's a kid until they're 25. That's the new line.
Is that the new because of brain? Because of the brain?
Yeah, because we're all internet babies now
Right.
until we hit 25,
Facts.
and then we turn into
Facts.
internet toddlers.
Right, man. All right, so hey, so do you want to get into this? So what I was thinking is I think if I understand your position correctly, is that you base your stance on abortion based off of the bodily autonomy argument, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I also don't believe in the personhood of zygotes and fetuses, but that's not an argument that's going to convince anybody. Like that gets into a really esoteric,
Well,
philosophical
okay. Yeah,
territory.
understood. So I mean, we could get to that if we get to it, but it doesn't really matter because if you're talking about bodily autonomy, that you know that's based off of whether you are quote unquote not a person or a person. So it wouldn't really matter to you if I argued based on it being a person, right?
Yeah, if we're going to argue the bodily autonomy thing, then we can operate on the shared assumption that
Yeah.
that we can assign personhood to a fetus, even though I don't
Okay.
personally believe that. But for the sake of the bodily autonomy argument, yeah,
Okay.
we can
And
make
then
that
and
leap.
then in the unlikelihood that I'm able to convince you right here live on stream that the bodily autonomy argument is incredibly flawed, then I'm assuming after that you'd be like, okay, well, it's not a person anyway, and then we would have that discussion.
Yeah, sure, but I would if
Okay.
we had to back up to that point and I had to start arguing that point, I would feel as though I lost this conversation anyway. If I have to retreat
Okay.
to that point, then I feel like like I've already conceded too much ground. So we'll see how
That's
it
fair.
goes.
Okay. So do you want to kind of just lay out your like exactly what the bodily autonomy argument is for you and why you believe that?
Yeah, sure. So in society, legally, at least in this country, we don't have a precedent established where a person is expected to sacrifice their bodily autonomy to preserve the life of an entity for whom they have responsibility. That is not a legal expectation that we have. So the example that I usually like to use is this one. If you're driving a car drunk and you get in a car accident, the car accident leaves you injured, but the other person near comatose. The state cannot force you to donate your blood or anything else, any other part of your body, in order to preserve the life of the person who is a victim of your car accident. Even though the incident was your fault, And even though you are, in this hypothetical, the only person who could save them immediately enough, the state cannot criminally penalize you for not choosing to do so. So it's unfortunate, even if you believe that fetuses are persons, which I know you do, but it seems like there are grave legal consequences that could arise from us believing that one has a responsibility to sacrifice their bodily autonomy in those situations.
Okay, so then I would say in this scenario that you have a moral obligation to help that person. But here's what I would say. So in your scenario, I'm going to kind of break this down for you.
Mhm.
So you're saying that, and I want to make sure that I understand your argument completely. I don't want to straw man you, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
All right, so you're saying that okay, so you're drunk. So there's a drunk driver. You hit somebody, and then I guess you wake up, and then they have to be relying on it. So they're physically dependent on you, kind of like in pregnancy, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they're physically dependent on you, and then you're saying that, well, you can't be forced to sacrifice your bodily autonomy for them, right?
Yes.
Okay. So for one, to make this analogous, we would have to say, like analogous to pregnancy, you'd have to say that the drunk driver won't face criminal charges if they decide to give up their bodily autonomy. Do you grant me that?
No.
Why?
Because in the act of pregnancy, having sex isn't illegal, whereas drunk driving is illegal. So in that instance, the only reason why criminal penalties would be levied against you, the driver, would be because of your decision to drive drunk, whereas nobody's criminalizing the act of sex itself.
No, so that's not what you're comparing though. What you're comparing is the actual physical dependency. Like you are responsible. You did something to where that other person is completely reliant on you. They're completely dependent on you, right? The same way as in pregnancy, you did something where they are completely dependent on you. Now, if you wanted to like actually argue in good faith and you wanted to properly analogize this, you would say that okay, so like in your scenario, through the actions of, like, let's say that I'm the drunk driver, so in your scenario, through the actions of my own, I force that other person to be in a state of dependency on me, just like a mother forces a fetus to be in a state of dependency on her. Now, if this person dies, in the drunk driver and the person that I hit, so if the person dies due to my actions of drunk driving, then really I killed them, right?
Mhm.
So I totally killed them. I'm responsible for their death. I killed them, right? The same way that in abortion, that if they die due to the mother's actions of abortion, I mean, technically also the doctor, but I digress. But yeah, okay. So same thing there. But in both instances, I'm either going to be held responsible for killing them and be charged with the penalty of that crime, or I can allow them to use my resources from my body and not be charged for killing them. Right? That's exactly what we're talking. Like, if you really wanted to make it analogous, that's what it would be. Otherwise, if you're saying that the act of running someone over is a crime, well, then you didn't properly analogize. So if you want to make it analogous, then you would have to say yes, that you are not going to face charges. Just the same way in my quote unquote utopia, or if we made abortion illegal, then yes, you will not be charged if you don't kill that person. If you allow them to use your body because you forced them there in the first place, then you will not face penalties.
But drunk driving is illegal. It's a criminal act, whether or not you hurt or kill anybody. This is disanalogous. In the example that we're using here, we're
I
only
agree,
talking
your
about,
analogy is disanalogous.
well, the way in which you're trying to apply it is disanalogous. In the context that we're applying this argument here, the only thing we're interested in is whether or not the state can criminalize your decision to not use your body to support the life you are responsible for. The only element in which this is disanalogous is that sex is not illegal, whereas drunk driving is. But that shouldn't change the fact that if you get into that car accident, if you cause another person to be on death's door and you choose not to support them with your own life, you aren't being criminally charged for not supporting them. You're being criminally charged for drunk driving. The
For
state
killing,
has
well,
no
you're not being
legal
charged just for
weight.
that. You're being charged for killing them.
Well, you're being charged for the action which led to that situation, not for your decision to not assist them with your with the support of your own body.
Wait. If you're drunk driving and no one knows that you're drunk driving, you're not charged for it, right?
Well, sure, but it's still illegal.
Okay, and if you sure, but if you hit somebody, then now that's like a legit, you actually cause the death, excuse me, of someone else, right?
Oh, yeah, if they die.
Okay, right, sure. So my point is that if you're saying that it doesn't matter, then it shouldn't matter of what I just said, right? So it would be completely analogous. I made it more analogous that way. Now, if you cannot come up with an analogy to where uh, uh, forcing someone into a state of dependency on you, you could find some kind of circumstance where it is not criminal in the act, then I'd say that's really on you. That's not my problem. Like,
Well,
you just didn't make it analogous.
the reason why we don't have many examples of those is because society has been set up in such a way as to eliminate the possibility of you putting people in a state of dependency without some kind of crime or unethical act being like taking place. Like you can, if you want to, you can think of like esoteric arguments here. Like, let me think of an example. If you're in if you're in a refugee, no, let me think.
I can analogize.
If you're out camping in the forest and you have a tent and you have food in that tent because you're camping, and then a person who has been out in the wilderness starving while you're out walking around invades your tent and starts taking some of your food, it was through your actions and your relative material availability that they came to be in that position. But you would have every legal right to kick them out or to deny them food.
So you didn't force them into that state of dependency. They actually made the conscious decision to go ahead and invade your space. A fetus does not make the conscious decision, correct?
Circumstances forced them into that position. Otherwise, they would die.
What circumstances?
The circumstances that they would starve if they didn't have that food.
Okay, even if someone would starve, are they allowed, or do we permit people? If a homeless person is going to starve, if I don't let them into my home, do I have to let them into my home?
I don't know. Do you think that your convenience is worth more than their right to life?
But here's the thing: I didn't force them into that state of dependency. If I like kidnapped them and I was forcing them to starve or whatever, then that would be different. But I didn't force them into that state of dependency. So I think that you keep missing that point.
Does it matter if you're the one who forced them? If circumstances force them into that position, it's still a matter of convenience versus life, is it not?
No, because see, I absolutely believe that that's how my whole argument is framed, right? So I can talk about the personhood part, but you don't really care. But the last part that you would probably more so care about is that if you force another person to be in a state of dependency on you, like physical state of dependency on you, you cannot remove that dependency knowing that they will die. You are completely responsible for them, right? Now, I'm not saying you physically couldn't do it, but I'm saying that you should face, you should definitely feel morally bad for it, but you should definitely also face like legal consequences. So, and I could tell you, because you were talking about something about there are not many instances of.
If you want, I can provide an example.
Well, no, you've already provided a couple examples. If you don't
One
mind,
that's perfectly analogous, if you would prefer.
I'd like to provide one.
Okay.
So let's say that because you're talking about bodily. Okay, so let me ask you this before I do this. Let me preface this. Do you believe that bodily autonomy always trumps the right to life of someone else?
There are specific let me think. There are instances where a soldier, I suppose, they sort of give up their bodily autonomy to an extent.
What to like the state?
But yeah, to the state.
Sure.
For an average person, unless there's some sort of contractual incident which is involved, like they actually meaningfully, purposefully, and without coercion sign away some element of their bodily autonomy. With that exception, I would say that yes, bodily autonomy will always trump the life of another. Yeah.
Okay, so even if it will harm another person.
Yeah, we have to. Otherwise, you get into some really, really dangerous territory legally.
Okay, and also even if you invite that person, you're basically saying you can rescind consent at any time.
Yeah, unless there's some very specific contractual obligation that you've mutually established.
All right, so let me go ahead and impose this thought experiment. So say that a skydiving instructor invites you to go skydiving. Now, because you're new, they buddy up with you and attach themselves to your back, and then you both jump out. Now, about 10 seconds after jumping, the instructor is no longer feeling this shit, right? And they decide to rescind consent. They no longer want you to use their body or their resources, right, or their property, and they use both. And the use of both of their body and their resources is taken away, right? You fall to the ground and die. Did the instructor do anything wrong?
Yeah, I would say so.
What did he do wrong?
I would say that part of being a skydiving instructor involves some contractual obligation to ensure the health and well-being of people who sign
Let's say
up
that
for
he's
classes.
not a skydiving instructor by any official capacity. He's just like an expert skydiver, maybe even one of your friends. Okay, but by no, he's not. He doesn't have his own, fucking business or anything. I just labeled him a skydiving instructor, but you could say he's a skydiving expert.
Sure.
Did he do anything wrong?
Yeah, then in that case, I would say that you would probably have to legally differentiate the bodily expectations associated with carrying a fetus to term for 9 months and all the expenses and trials therewithin, as opposed to the inconvenience associated with maintaining your hold over that individual until you reach the ground, which would thus save their life.
Wait a minute. So, but hold on. So you already said that the bodily autonomy trumps the right to life of someone else, even if it puts them in danger.
Really bodily autonomy. If you're
Sure
like
it is.
if you're
In
playing
or on your body.
You know that game where it's like that corporate trust game where you hold another person's hands and both of you lean backwards so you both prop each other up with
Sure.
that thing. If you do that
Sure.
with your friend over a cliffside, so you're leaning back over the ground, they're leaning back over a precipice, and you let go because you don't care anymore, that would be
Yeah.
murder. Because the circumstances of that arrangement and the means by which they came to die were in the context of a situation where you had every ability to save their life with essentially no inconvenience to yourself. And in fact, had agreed to beforehand.
So because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, and had agreed to beforehand, as a matter of fact. I mean, part of the game there is to not fall. That's the purpose of the game.
Okay.
But you chose not to.
So what if you don't agree?
Well, then you wouldn't do the trust fall, right?
Well, no. So say in this analogy that I just gave you, or you could even use the analogy that you gave me, either one. So say that you force this person over the cliff, right? And they are now You ever see those fucking weird people who go on like those tall building rooftops and hang each other over the ledge?
Yes, I've seen Russians.
It's fucking weird, bro. It's so weird. But let's say, instead of this being like your friend, or they could even have been your friend, but they push you over the ledge, right? You had no intention of doing that. You did not consent. They push you over the ledge and they are holding on to you and you are dangling fucking 50 stories up or whatever you want to say, right? So now, and if they let you go, because your stance here was like, well, okay, well, you had this contractual agreement. Okay, so there is no contractual agreement here, right? They didn't consent to this.
Well, then
right?
it would just be murder, wouldn't it?
Right, because you force them into that state of dependency, right?
Well, no, it'd be because you push them over
Okay, did you or did you not force them into a state of dependency on your body?
There's a huge so what we're doing right
here is yes or no.
So wait, hold on. There's a reason why you just said yes or no, and it's because this is a rhetorical trick often used by the anti-choice people. It's
not even a rhetorical trick. It's testing your logical consistency.
Well, no, if you can't actually rhetorical.
Operate in good faith, then you're logically inconsistent.
It's rhetorical obfuscation. So can you understand there might be a difference between being forced in a position with regards to a person not like having a child because like birth control failed and then they have to carry that over the course of 9 months, and being forced in a situation like you deliberately push someone over a building? Like, the legal and moral differences between these two like situations are so significant and so numerous that I don't think any applicable comparison can even be drawn between the two. I mean, you push them over the building. Even if you pulled them back over, I'm pretty sure that would at the very least be assault or attempted murder. I don't know. I'm not. Depends on what the state thinks they could go for.
Okay, so did you or did you not force them into a state of dependency? You didn't answer my question.
Force them into a state of dependency. Sure, if you want to use force them into a state of dependency
on
in
your
such
body,
a broad way that it encompasses everything from having sex with a person to attempted murder, then sure.
Okay, so you force that person into a state of dependency that they otherwise would not have been there had it not been for your actions?
Yeah, but that's like causality.
Okay, so we've already agreed, or at least you said earlier, that pregnancy is the act of forcing that life into being. You force them into a state of dependency there, right?
No, I don't think so. You don't force anything when you have sex.
So wait a minute. So you're saying that pregnancy does not force a new life into being?
No, they emerge into being. You're not forcing an entity to do anything.
So you didn't. Okay, what's the definition of force?
This is a philosophical context. There are like 40.
What is force?
Force, as in an action leads to another, or force as in you coerce an entity into doing something. It could be either.
You achieve or bring about something by coercion or effort of your own, right?
Right, but you wouldn't say then that the starving man in the forest, you forced them into coming into your tent, even though it was by the effort which you brought your food there that led to them being there.
That isn't your effort.
Well, no,
If
yeah,
you
it
if you
absolutely
did
is. You
some,
brought
if
the
you
food
did
there.
something
Yeah.
that forced them, no. If you did something that forced that starving person there, like you physically forced them there, then yeah, absolutely.
Wait, but you
So
don't.
so
I
hold
don't
on, so hold on,
physically
so hold on,
force
so
a
hold on.
fetus, or well, I don't have a womb, but nobody physically forces a
Okay,
fetus to anything. When you have sex, the
so
fetus doesn't exist.
okay, so wait a minute. So okay, say that you had like a. I'm trying to figure out why you're not getting this part, but okay. So say that you had a button, right?
Hmm.
Okay, now if you have this button, and if you press the button, two things will happen. One, $100 will manifest into existence right there in front of you. Bam, $100, right? COVID times, you definitely could use that $100, right?
Hmm.
So okay, so $100 will manifest in front of you.
Hmm.
But also by pressing this button, there's a chance that someone in the world who otherwise would not have been killed at that time immediately dies. Now, whether that chance is 1%, 10%, 50%, or 90% is irrelevant. It's still more than 0% if you chose not to push the button. So you push the button, someone dies. So through your own effort, did you bring about that conclusion?
I don't know. You're killing a living person, aren't you? Or like, how is it happening? Was it?
Hold on. It doesn't matter if it's living or not. Don't backtrack now because you already said that we will operate based on they are both
Well, no,
persons.
no.
So
It's a pretty
again,
big
I'll ask you
difference
that question.
between arbitrarily killing an entity that already exists and has been born, and you're deliberately doing so, and just
Vosh,
Mhm.
did you or did you not say
That person's not
earlier
physically
that
dependent on you.
when we are talking about bodily autonomy and we were talking about all of this, you said, "Hey, we're going to operate based off of it being a person." Did you or
Yeah,
did you not
but
say that?
right, but the difference is the
So
person
don't
who's already
backtrack now.
hold on. The person who's already been born isn't physically dependent on you. This stops being a bodily autonomy argument. Now it's just a like God of the machine argument.
I'm not even talking about. I'm not even talking about bodily autonomy at this point
But
because you
that's
were
the
talking
only
about.
thing I'm talking about. That's the
No, no,
only
no,
thing I
no,
care about.
no. Vosh. We were talking about bodily autonomy, and the reason why we went over here is because you don't agree that is forcing a life into being. I am now asking you. I'm giving you
What do
this
you mean
thought
by
experiment.
force?
Force. You achieve or you brought about
Well,
something
okay, so
by your own effort.
let's
So
run through the
hold on.
definitions.
You haven't answered my question yet. So I
Okay.
gave you this thought experiment,
It's
right? Because I'm
disanalogous. It's
trying,
completely disanalogous.
bro. How is it well, I'm testing to see
You
if
just
you
said it's not
understand if
about
this is
bodily
force.
autonomy. How can it be
I'm
analogous
talking
when it's
about
not
is
about
this force? Did you force that through your own effort? Did you bring about that conclusion?
I don't yes?
Okay, so it through your own effort, if you brought about the
Because you're
conclusion
pressing a
here,
button.
then through pregnancy, right? But it doesn't matter, right? Because I told you, yes, you're pushing a button. So if you're making that analogous to sex, right? You are engaging in sex. You don't have to have sex. You don't have to press this button,
Okay.
but you did it anyway.
So
Hold
wait,
on.
no,
Let me finish this. Let me finish
This is
this.
completely disanalogous. We're
Bro,
not talking about whether or not sex is
give me
consensual.
like 30 seconds and then you can just say that I'm lying. All right.
Okay,
But
go for it.
this is what I'm saying. So, okay. So go ahead. So yeah, so you just said yes. So yes, you brought about that conclusion through efforts of your own.
You
Absolutely. Just as
press
if
the
you push the
button,
button.
yeah.
Right. Just as if you push the button, just as if you have sex, right? Okay. Now it doesn't matter, right? The $100 is really I was equating that to like your fucking orgasm or whatever you want to fucking say, right? Something really cool that you like is gonna happen, right? But also by doing this, that there is a chance, a small chance. It doesn't matter what the size of that chance is, you know that is a chance that you will that another person will die because of this effort that you do not have to do in the first place. You then just said yes, through your own effort you brought about that conclusion. So based on that, then yes, Vosh, pregnancy would be forcing. That is the definition of force.
So no. So
Yes.
what the analogous example here would be that abortion is forcing bodily removal for the
Oh my
fetus.
God.
Wait,
Are you not understanding what I'm
hold on.
saying?
You just said I can talk. Hold on. So the example you just
Go ahead.
provided is analogous only to the act of abortion, which is obviously an act of force. They have to use forceps. British. But no. This is completely disanalogous to the act of bringing the fetus into existence to begin with. So we can run through the definitions of force if you would like to.
Hold on, before you run through the definitions, just tell me exactly how I mean, you literally just agreed with me. But you do you know what you're doing right now? You are special pleading. You are giving these exact same, you are giving the circumstance. You're saying, yes, Tyler, that right there, through your own effort, you brought about that conclusion. There is nothing disanalogous between what we just broke down through you pushing that button to the act of pregnancy.
Your act of pushing that button, which is a deliberate and purposeful action, which leads to, and again, I'm conceding for the purposes of this argument, the personhood of a fetus, the death of a person is analogous to abortion. But the only reason why we say abortion is morally justified in a bodily autonomy sense is because that fetus is dependent on your body, and thus its existence within your body exacts a toll on you. So this has nothing to do with the ethical question regarding personhood or abortion or anything regarding this. The fact of the matter is that so oh my god, you've relied on a lot of really disanalogous things, like the fact that we even went to murdering people is the same as abortion.
I've made your analogies more analogous. But
so wait, hold on. Let's work on a perfectly analogous analogy. Then,
well, hold on. You're going into something else. Hold on, bro. You're trying. I have no problem with letting you speak. I'm not trying to continuously interrupt you. But what I'm saying is that if you go off into other topics without finishing this one first, right, you are dodging the question.
Wait, I'm not dodging any question. I just responded to the point you made. Okay, it's disanalogous.
Okay, so here's what I'm saying. So either you're not understanding me or I'm miscommunicating. No, so either way, I'm gonna try and do this again. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so wait, let's run through this. Okay,
will you allow me to go into this after you ask me this question?
No, because I'm gonna want your answer to this question, but then you can go into whatever you want.
I'm saying I'm gonna answer you, but I'm saying then can we go back to this?
Sure. Though I question, I don't know, the worthwhileness of that. But okay. Let's say you are driving. You have friends in your car.
You're going into bodily autonomy.
You're not. Bodily autonomy is the only relevant instance here. That's the only thing I care about.
This is why I'm saying, Vosh, I understand that, man. I completely understand that we are talking about bodily autonomy. Again, the reason why, remember how we got here in the first place, right? Because what we were talking about, whatever analogy we were talking about.
Into this example, but go on.
No, you are. But what I'm saying is that the reason why we got on here is because you said, well, no, Tyler, that right there, the act of pregnancy is not the forcing of someone, right? Because my whole thing was that you can't force another person into a state of dependency. And you were like, well, that's not force. That is why we were talking about force. So it's directly tied to this. Now you are refusing to concede when you already really have. Right, so I'm not saying you conceded your bodily autonomy argument. I'm talking about the force.
So wait, hold on. Hold on. So wait, I'm being very nice here for the sake of charitability, but your force argument was so poorly constructed that you analogized forcing a fetus. Hold on. You analogized forcing a fetus into existence with forcing a person into a state of dependency by pushing them off a building and grabbing their wrist at the last second. The idea that we were even in the same ballpark of ethical or legal consideration is absurd, which is why I'm trying to get us back on analogous examples so we can actually discuss the issue at hand here.
Why does it matter if it's a fetus or not? You said that it would be a person.
Oh my god. Here, wait, hold on. Let me ask this question and then we'll run through with that, okay? Then we can do whatever we want.
Go ahead.
So you're driving. You have friends in the car. You're not a great driver. You have a driver's license. You're not a great driver. Through poor driving on your part, which is in no way illegal.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I wasn't following. Say that again. I'm sorry.
You're driving with friends in the car and you're not a great driver. You're legally allowed to drive and you are a poor driver. Through your own fault, nobody else's fault, in ways that are not illegal, you end up crashing the car and putting one of your friends into a severe medical situation. Does the state have the legal right to force you into providing your bodily resources in order to save that friend's life? Can they criminalize you for saying, no, I love my friend, but I'm not going to sit here for 3 months while my blood gets cycled through their bloodstream?
Yeah, again, this really isn't that much different from your original drunk driving thing. You're just saying that, well, instead of there being a crime, somehow you crash. It is your fault, but it's not illegal. So, okay, that's fine. It doesn't really change my answer that I gave you.
Wait, can you answer the question, though?
I'm about to. Okay. So it doesn't change. It's my original thing, right? So in your scenario, through actions of my own, I force another person into a state of dependency on me. I'm assuming in your analogy that you're saying that they, like me, they have to be reliant on my body, right?
Sure. Let's say it's a rural hospital and this person needs blood now and they run out of stock.
Yeah. So through actions of my own, I quote unquote force that person into a state of dependency on me. Again, when you're analogizing this to pregnancy and to abortion specifically, it's really no different. So in both of these instances, whether it's your scenario or whether we're talking about if abortion would be illegal, either I'm going to be held responsible for killing them and charged with the penalty of that crime, or I can allow them. Okay, that's fine. So then say this, so that I won't be charged for any penalty of the crime. Then it's not analogous to abortion, because in this scenario, when we're talking about in a pro-life world, if you do something that forces them into a state of dependency and then you kill them.
No, I'm saying right now, should the state be able to criminally penalize you deciding to not lend your bodily autonomy for the sake of your friend's
Again,
life.
that's not analogous. That's not analogous to abortion
How?
at all.
Wait,
Especially
this is
not to the
perfectly
pro-life
analogous.
stand. Especially not to the pro-life
you
stand.
have an
Well, hold
innocent person who, through your actions in a non-illegal context, it's not illegal to be a bad driver, is put now in a state of physical dependency on your body.
Sure, but I didn't kill them, right? You're saying even if they die, I'm not responsible for their death legally, you're saying.
If they either die or you lend your bodily autonomy to them to preserve their life.
Not saving someone isn't the same as killing someone, Vosh.
You don't kill a fetus by aborting it. You just remove your body from it.
No, you kill it. You kill it. You kill it.
Wait, hold on.
Unless you're a fucking evictionist.
Wait, hold on. I understand the issue now. I completely understand the issue now. You actually can't engage with the bodily autonomy argument because you're not capable of recognizing the distinction between killing something and not providing.
Entire fucking time.
Wait, hold on. You actually can't engage with it. There's a difference between killing something and no longer providing your bodily resources to something. There's a difference there.
Bosh. So let's break this down, man. Let's try and debate in good faith here. So let's break this down. In your analogy, and I want to go back to don't try and dodge.
We'll fix it one more level. You wake up after the car accident to find that you've already been hooked up to the friend who's on life support. You wake up
that would be analogous to rape. That would be analogous to rape. I believe in evictionism, or quote unquote, it's an abortion in cases of rape. So your analogy would be like if someone forced me to force them. Like I didn't physically force them to be dependent on me. Someone forced me to force them. You know what I mean? That would be more analogous to rape.
Okay. So if you think that the action of having, through no fault of your own, your bodily autonomy hinged on another person, or another person hinged on your bodily autonomy, is rape.
Are we talking about rape? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
How can you not distinguish the difference between deliberately and purposefully killing something as opposed to just removing it from your bodily life support?
Right. Again, so if I force them, are you asking me about? I'm sorry. Ask your question again.
How can you not recognize that this is perfectly analogous?
It's not perfectly analogous because again, let me ask, and I'm gonna break it down by asking questions. So in a pro-life world, right? If we made abortion illegal, we make abortion illegal because we believe that is the killing of a person, right?
I would hope not, but sure.
I know you don't want that world, but I'm just saying if it was, you understand that that's what we believe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we would make that illegal because we believe the killing of innocent people to be wrong, immoral, and should be illegal. So this is the same thing. So you go ahead and we make that illegal. So if through consensual sex and all that other shit, if the person becomes pregnant and they terminate that pregnancy, they killed that person, right? They should be, and in our world again, they should be held legally responsible for killing that person. Do you understand that?
I mean, I would disagree with the legal and philosophical.
I understand you disagree, but you understand.
Well, sure, they would be in that world, in that dumb world with dumb politics.
That's why I'm saying that your analogous is disanalogous, because in your scenario, even if I don't do anything in your scenario, if I don't do anything and they die, really because of, so the whole thing is that your whole thing would be disanalogous because I didn't really, if I can't be held accountable for those actions at all, and I didn't actually, then I'm not really at fault for killing them. Right. And when it comes to abortion, again, in the pro-life side, you're responsible for killing them. So your analogy is disanalogous. If you can't see that now, then I don't know how to like make this any more simple for you.
Wait, let's run this point by point. Okay. So you're driving with your friends. Okay. That is the act of sex. Driving is sex.
Real quick.
Okay.
I just want to interrupt for 1 second and then you can continue. Don't be dodging. We're coming back to that forced pregnancy, but go ahead.
Okay. We're not dodging. Okay. So the driving is analogous to the sex. It's something that you do, and you understand that it carries risks. Every time you drive, you carry the risk of an accident. That's what you're taught. That same with sex. Every time you have sex, assuming one person has sperm and the other person has eggs, you carry the risk. So that's it. Then you have a car accident, which leads in the incapacitation of one of your friends. Okay, and that's analogous to the fertilization of an egg. It's something. It's unfortunate if you're not trying to have a kid. It happened. There you go. Okay. And you wake up in the hospital, okay? So at this point, morally speaking, these are perfectly analogous situations. You have an entity, your friend, who can only live if they're hooked up to your body. Now,
Mhm.
if the doctors at this hospital hooked you up while you were under, you compared that to rape, which is really interesting to me because
Yeah.
considering the fact that these are analogous examples, that kind of makes it seem like you think it's unfair or unethical to expect that anybody should be put in a position to have their bodily autonomy sacrificed for the benefit of another's life, even if they're at fault. So even though in this situation you're the reason that friend might die, you think it's unethical for the doctors to hook you up. The only difference in this situation is that in this case, the doctors hook you up, whereas after a pregnancy, it is the natural function of biology which hooks you up. But if you think that's unethical, if you think that it's unethical that biology puts you on the hook for 9 months for that, as you seem to, because you think it would be unethical if it was done purposefully by a doctor, it thus necessarily follows that the decision to not sacrifice your bodily autonomy for this entity is something which you have a right to do without being criminally penalized, as you do in the example with the car, and as you seem to support as long as we substitute all of the relevant variables with the car example as opposed to the abortion example. It seems like you agree with me as long as we substitute the nouns.
Okay, so when you're talking about pregnancy, even though that is technically which I don't, you didn't, well, you kind of agree, but didn't agree, but we'll go back to it. Even though that it is, or I believe it is, quote unquote, the forcing of a life into being, I don't find that to be a moral negative, right? So it is a natural human not even a human process, just like a eukaryotic process, but is a natural process. I don't consider it to be a moral negative or a moral positive. I just consider it to be a moral neutral. So when it comes to this, I'm not getting it, and here's why I'm not getting it.
Mhm.
So I understand everything that you analogized, right? Each point, but the problem that you're having is that if I don't do it, you're kind of comparing saving someone to not killing them, right? Because in your analogy, I wouldn't be responsible for killing them. I didn't actually kill them, right? I didn't intentionally kill them, right?
Well, not intentionally, but through your actions, you force them in a position of dependence on your body.
Okay. Okay. Sure. But so you force them into this state of dependency, but you're giving me the option. It's like, okay, well, if I don't save them, if I don't save them, I'm not penalized. I shouldn't be penalized because I'm just not saving them, right? Which doesn't really make
I'm
sense. I
sorry.
mean, I don't know how
I
that would make
swallowed
sense in
saliva
this.
incorrectly. Okay.
Okay.
So when you have an abortion,
Yeah.
the only reason why we're having this argument, or the only reason why I care about this at all, is because of
Right.
the bodily autonomy argument. If by
Yeah, I get
some
that.
if by some way a person could be pregnant and it had absolutely no effect on them, not financially, not physically, then I wouldn't care. In fact, I would probably think that abortion would be unethical because in that case, whether or not you've settled the personhood argument, it's not affecting you in any way, shape, or form. Therefore, there's not really like a counterbalance to allowing them to exist long enough to pop into existence somewhere else. Um, but the fact of the matter is that abortion does carry with it consequences to the people who are uh, carrying a baby. So, in your example, or I'm sorry, in your contention, the only difference
Yeah.
is who's hooking you up to the one dependent on you, and that was just, it's interesting to me
Well, not
because,
not that's not the only thing. That's not the only thing.
well, does the
So
doctor
yes,
do
it
it?
does.
Why is the doctor
Well, hold
hooking
on.
you up
Hold on, let
unethical?
me answer your question. So if somebody forces me to be hooked up to another person, I would consider that just like more analogous to rape,
Why?
right? So like through no actions. Well, I guess now that I'm breaking this down, so I'm like talking out loud while I'm talking to you. So, or thinking out loud while I'm talking to you. So in this, if you did something to actually put yourself in that position, then I guess it's like muddy waters. It's not really that analogous again. And the reason why it's not, and it almost is. I'm not saying that it's completely disanalogous. I am not saying that. I'm not even saying that you're operating under intentional dishonesty or intellectual dishonesty. I'm just saying that it's not how it should be because the issue that you're going to run into again is, are you or should you be at fault for killing that person, or for killing that person? You just keep equating, well, not saving them is, it's not the same as not killing them,
Well,
or
why
yeah,
is it
it's not the
rape for
same.
the doctor to hook you up?
I would rescind that. So I would say if just a doctor hooked you up, I was thinking based off of the fact that, okay, so if a doctor hooked you up to somebody else, and that person like isn't there of any fault of your own, then it would be more so like rape. But so I would rescind that just because you didn't put that part there.
Okay, sure, but say it's your car accident. You got your friend hurt. The doctor hooks you up while you're still under. Like the friend of yours is in a bad state. You just got knocked up the head,
Mhm.
so you're unconscious. You wake up, there's tubes, and you know there's tubes in them. Is that rape or is that ethical?
Say it again. I'm so sorry.
So in the situation where you're at fault for this person's injury and you're the only
Yeah.
one who can save them, and the doctor hooks you up to them while you're under, do you think that's unethical for the doctor to do that, to connect to you?
For the doctor to hook me up?
Yeah, like the doctor's like, oh shit, this guy's gonna die unless we start pumping blood into them stat. They hook
Sure,
you up.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't believe you should do that the same way that when you're talking about pro-life, we're not saying that the state or government should hold you down or force you to do this. It's like you totally have a choice. On the pro-life side, you still have a choice. You just have consequences for those choices. On the pro-choice side, you don't have consequences for those choices, at least not legal ones. So, like, yeah, so it's the same thing. It's like, look, you could kill someone. Sure, you could absolutely go out and kill someone, but you will have consequences for this. It's the same way when you're talking about abortion. You don't believe that it's
Why
the
is it
killing of a
wrong
person.
for the doctor to hook you up? It's your fault the guy's there. They're gonna die without you.
Sure, and you sure, and again, this is why I'm saying it's not analogous, is because to make it analogous with abortion, if you are arguing in good faith against the pro-life side, you would say that there would have to be consequences. You are responsible for their death. You killed them, and you are trying to put some special parameter where, like some illogical parameter, where you say, well, no, it's you're not going to be charged because you didn't actually do it. You didn't kill them. Well, in abortion, we believe that
I'm
is
not
killing
talking about charges or anything like that. I'm just saying, why would it be unethical for the doctor to hook you up? Isn't the doctor doing God's work? If you have sex
I don't
and
believe
you
in
have,
God, so I don't know what you're talking about.
if you have sex and nature's work, if you have sex and the pregnancy takes place, then by natural biological forces, the life of that zygote is attached to the womb. But it is because you had sex that
Doctor
zygote
isn't
is there.
natural forces, Bosch.
Well, yeah, but why is it different? Is it unethical for a human to do the work that a natural force would otherwise do?
So wait a minute. Are you legitimately trying to compare the natural forces
I'm
that you
asking
just
you
talked
why it's
about
unethical
versus a doctor who consciously made the decision to hook you up to someone?
Well, I'm asking you because in both cases, it's your fault why this life is dependent on you, and you're the only one who can save them. So why should the doctor not do what your womb would otherwise and hook you up?
Again, you shouldn't be. No one should sacrifice, okay, their bodily autonomy for that, right? If you are saying again, if you are saying that you are not responsible for killing of that person, then absolutely not. Even if you were responsible
you
for
were.
killing of
You
that person,
drove the car. It's your bad
but what I'm saying,
driving.
okay, but okay, if they die, are you responsible for killing them?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. You're putting the special parameters that have nothing to do with abortion.
No.
When it comes to abortion, Vosh,
We're just
please
talking about
operate
a
on good
life.
faith. Please operate on good faith.
No, nothing
If you
about
are
it is bad
operating-
faith. I need you to understand that these are completely analogous
Vosh,
examples.
They're not. You saying that complete like over and over again to gaslight your own.
That's not what
audience
gaslighting means. What is disanalogous here? Is it your fault that the person needs your life to survive?
Is it your fault that the person needs
in
your
this
life to survive?
example that I have provided, in this analogy?
Is it your fault that
your
they
fault?
need
Like
your
you
life?
drove. It's your bad driving. That's the reason why there was an accident.
Okay, so if it's my bad driving, why am I not going to be charged for the killing of them?
Because it's not illegal to drive poorly. Plenty of people get in car accidents that tragically lead to the death of their children or their partners or their friends without getting charged. Like that's just part of life. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
What happened? Okay, but what happened? Why? It's important. The distinction is important.
You drive poorly. You just drove poorly. You reacted poorly to some other car like changing lanes really quickly in front of you, and you pivoted off into a light stand, and you hit. It's poor driving, but it's not illegal. Okay. You're not going to be charged.
Okay, you're not going to... Right. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so it's your fault. I mean, if you'd been a better driver, you wouldn't have hit. If you'd done better, your friend wouldn't be in that position. It's your fault. You wake up and you're hooked up to your friend who's dying. Why? Why is it unethical for the doctor to do that?
Well, the same way, just because you do... Okay, so everything that would be your, I guess you would say your fault or the reason why they are there doesn't mean that it should also translate to legality, right? Not everything.
Well, in this world, in America today, you wouldn't be held legally responsible. And in America today, you could have an abortion.
About what is legal. Yeah, but we're not talking about what is legal. We're talking about what should be legal, right?
Well, no, I'm talking about ethically. Why is it wrong for the doctor to hook you up?
Well, why would it be right? I'm not understanding here.
Because it was your fault that your friend is about to die and you're the only one who can save them.
Okay, again, you are so you're proving my point, right? So, like I said, choosing to save someone isn't the same as killing them, Vosh, or
But
choosing not to kill them.
that's my argument. Okay, wait. Actually, I have a different hypothetical. Hold on. Wait, this is a little wacky,
Okay.
but I'm genuinely curious, okay? If humans were reptiles, I know this sounds dumb, but please follow through with me here, okay? So the way,
Yeah.
okay. So the way humans work is that we incubate living things in our wombs and then we poop them out, basically, okay? If instead we were reptiles, when we fertilize eggs, we lay those eggs and then have to take care of those eggs in order for them to hatch. You got to sit in them for a couple months. Do you think it would be unethical for humans to have sex, to fertilize eggs, to plop those eggs out, and then to just fucking ditch them? Like inside, you got little human zygote things.
Okay,
They're
so
in eggs.
hold on. I don't know why we're talking about the reptilian people, but okay. So you're saying that if we were I'm gonna grant you this. You're saying that if we were reptiles, and what happens now?
If do you think it would be unethical to lay
Mhm.
fertilized eggs as a reptile, as a female reptile, I guess, and then to just abandon those eggs, knowing that there are little zygotes inside of them that are biologically identical to what a human woman would carry in their womb now? Would it be okay to leave those eggs, not warm them? They die and rot on their own.
So you're like own children essentially.
They're your kids. You have sex. You don't want to have kids, so you just like leave the eggs to rot somewhere behind a dumpster. Do you think
Okay,
that would be ethical?
so what you would equate that? Okay, but I'm not trying to talk about reptilians. I'm trying to bring this over. But I'm going to grant you this. I am going to grant you this. But I'm just thinking it through in my head. So okay, so would we say that this is the same as a mother who has a child who leaves their kid out to starve and doesn't do anything for them? They just don't want to be bothered with them.
Well, no, because at that point they've already given birth to the kid. In this case, I'm testing your hypothetical. I'm testing your moral
Well, what
consistency.
does it matter?
Because you just said there's a difference between killing a fetus and not attaching yourself to sustain the life of somebody who requires you to live. Those eggs are detached from you. You can walk away if you want, but they need your continued support in order to live. Is it okay to walk away from them?
So for one, I would just say that it wouldn't matter just because. No, so it is not okay for you to walk away from your if that is what I believe to be a person, right? It is not okay for you to walk away from the person that you also created. Now, when we're talking about like your own child specifically, there are I don't know if you agree with this. You can tell me if you do or you don't. There's also a difference between someone else versus your own children, right? So you have I believe you have a moral responsibility, but also currently you do have a legal responsibility to provide at least food and shelter for your kids, and you cannot neglect them. Sure, but again, we're talking about like persons, right? I believe it to be a person. You keep every time I keep equating this to a person, you keep saying, "Oh, well, but a born." You've already said in the very beginning that you're going to talk about this as if it is a person.
Didn't you just say we have a legal obligation? If you just said obligation, then I would argue we absolutely do not have an obligation to these fetuses, which is why we can abort them.
Sure. Sure. But what I'm saying is that you have a moral. I believe you to have a moral obligation, but also yes, you currently do have a legal obligation, and I'm saying that I agree with that. But I believe also because that is a person, or what I believe to be a person, that it should be extended to the legal system. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand that. However, you said you could walk away from those eggs, knowing that those are essentially little fetuses.
No, I did not say that.
So you have So you have to take care of them, even though they're detached from your body, and it takes sustained effort on your part in order to do so.
Your children, sure.
Okay. So how is that any different from the example where you're the person who got in a car accident? In that incident, now you aren't hooked up directly the way that a fetus is to a womb. Yeah. External effort has to be exerted in order to maintain your bodily autonomy being suppressed to their livelihood. In this case, it would be doctors connecting you via wire or via tubes. In the egg case, it would be, I don't know, sitting on them, whatever it takes. How are these disanalogous?
Again, because in your analogy, you put the parameter that if you don't do, you are not responsible for killing that person. You're saying that you didn't. Again, if you're talking about this, when you're talking about these reptilian people, then I would say you are in this analogy, you are responsible for killing that person.
What's the difference?
Well, you made the difference. You said that you wouldn't be.
No, but in my case, I think that both of them are fine. I think that you have a right to walk away from your friend, and I think you have a right to walk away from those eggs. But what's the difference for you that makes it so that the eggs are something that you should have to sacrifice your
Yeah.
bodily autonomy for, but the person isn't?
Yeah, then I would just say that again, like if you are not, I guess I don't know another way to say what I've said a couple of times already.
So in both instances, you
Yeah,
have, through your own fault, you've
yeah,
produced an entity which is dependent on you to survive,
yeah.
and you must exert effort in order to sustain their life at the cost of your bodily autonomy. For an egg, it's sitting on it, and for your friend, it's tubes running your blood through to them. Does the state have the right to criminally penalize you for not doing those things?
No. Well, if you're talking about your in your scenario of not the reptilian people of the other thing, then absolutely not.
Wait, what's the difference? Wait, in both cases, how can you differentiate between the two?
Sure. So again, so if somebody, and I'm gonna kind of say this out loud as I think about it. So okay, so in your scenario, again, through fault of my own, this person is going to be in a state, or they are going to die if it isn't for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to die if it isn't for me. Now, if I allow them to hook themselves up to me through this through and violate my bodily autonomy, then then they do not die.
Yes, they will live,
Okay.
presumably, if you do so.
Okay. Okay. So so in this scenario, if I don't do anything, if I allow them to die, then I did nothing wrong.
From my moral system, I don't think you would have done anything wrong. I think you have a right to preserve your bodily autonomy.
Yeah. So for me, I would say that you absolutely did something wrong.
So, okay, do you think the state should be able
If
to
you
arrest you?
if you force that person into a state of dependency and then you remove that dependency, or at least in your analogy, if you force that person into a state of dependency due to fault of your own, then I would say that you killed that person. You're responsible for killing that person.
Okay, so
Right
you
now,
believe
again, you
that
can choose. No, I know what you're about to say. No, I've said this already. No, I do not believe that the state should go in there and say that you are forced to do this. I'm saying you have a choice, right? Again, we believe in the choice. We just believe in the consequence if you choose that choice. So it's like, hey, if you let's say the government comes in, they're like, hey, look, you're responsible for killing this person. Okay, or at least they're going to die because of your actions if you don't sacrifice your bodily autonomy. Okay, so if you do not do this, which you really should feel morally obligated to do anyway, because you're really the reason why they did that. But anyway, so yeah, so if you do not sacrifice your bodily autonomy for them, they are going to die due to fault of your own, and because you are responsible for them dying, you should be charged with this. Whereas the same thing when we were talking about abortion, if you abort this child or you don't give up your bodily autonomy, right? And they are there because of you, they're in that state of dependency because of you, then you should be charged. Or,
so so
or,
do you think you
or,
should be
hold on,
charged for
or,
the
hold on,
yeah.
or if you don't, or I'm sorry, or if you do, give up your bodily autonomy, then you will not be charged with the killing of them because you're not responsible. You did not kill them. Then everything will be fine. Then absolutely, 1,000%.
So you think the state should be able to charge you if you choose not to hook your body up to preserve the life of your friend?
If you are responsible in the killing, if you are responsible in their death, sure.
Okay. All right. You've bitten the bullet on that. I think that's insane. The
Why do you think that's insane?
the legal consequences of the state being able to charge people for not sacrificing their bodily autonomy to preserve the lives of others are
Well, hold on.
enormous.
Not just the lives of others. Don't generalize it. You force that person there, right? You are responsible for their death.
Sure, but to be
Yeah.
frank, the biggest leap there was the sacrifice of the bodily autonomy. The who it's for and why it's for are comparatively pithy arguments. If you argue you can sacrifice the bodily autonomy of an individual to save those for whom they're responsible, you can go much farther than that with very, very, very few changes to the premise. Why do you have to be responsible for that person? Does convenience not outweigh, or does life not outweigh convenience in all instances? You could start seeing situations where people start getting their organs harvested for the necessity of the state so they can distribute it to a proportionally greater number of people. This is a very dangerous legal road, and it is
Well,
the reason
how would you do that?
there are many ways why
No,
and how that
just
can be
explain
done.
it to me.
The specific example that I just provided?
Yeah. No, you're talking about like harvesting like organs.
Because at that point we fall down a sort of like naked utilitarian trap, where at this point the state has carte blanche permission to sacrifice the bodily autonomy of its citizens if they believe doing so could save more lives. But then you get like death panel shit. You get forced
No, it's
organ
not.
harvesting. You get like forced recruitment into the military. Everything that I'm describing right now follows like necessarily from the belief that you can sacrifice an individual's bodily autonomy.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I think these are very, very close to each other, like morally and ethically.
No, can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say absolutely not. So if you are talking about someone harvesting your organs and you keep saying sacrifice, it's like, well, no. Like, I mean, if you want to say sacrifice, if by what you mean by sacrifice is that you have a choice, like, look, you put this person there, you are responsible. You are what you did. Is going to end up with killing that person, and they are only in that position because of you. Right? They are only there because of you. Right. Also, like in your analogy, like they kind of made that conscious decision to come into your car.
Why does it
even
have to
knowing
be
that
somebody who's there because of you? How far does that go,
that was
by
your
the way?
analogy. That was your analogy.
What about a CEO who like fires people and then those people go hungry or starve? How far do we go with this?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
What if a CEO fires people and those people go
Yeah.
hungry, jobless, and they starve? How far do we go with this? Where does the line of moral responsibility end? Who's responsible for who?
Well, I wouldn't say that you are directly responsible for that. Also, there was like a contractual agreement that you had, right?
Yeah, but
Okay, so if you, but also to be fair, I do believe that you should be able to fire anybody just for about anything.
well, right, because you believe in autonomy when it comes to preserving corporate rights, but not when it comes to preserving like bodily rights.
No, what I'm saying is it's not even bodily rights. You're totally strawmanning my argument. But what I'm saying is that I'm saying that if you're talking about a CEO, they first you have that contractual agreement that you cannot do whatever or whatever. Even though I personally believe that you could fire somebody for whatever, we still do have that currently in law. I don't see that going away either. We still do have that currently in law that you can't do that. But even if you didn't, it is what it is. But again, that would more so be like you indirectly contributed to that. But then you could also argue it's like, well, if this person didn't do X, Y, and Z, then they would have whatever. Again, we'd have to like really boil that like scenario down to like a very, very specific
there are a
example.
million arguments that I could make. Now, I would take me some time to, but I guarantee you, if you gave me a day, I could think of an extrapolation of the argument you made to inflict a significant amount of harm on what we consider to be a reasonable society.
Sure. I guarantee you that if you made that argument in a day, that I would just respond to that video and we can come back.
It wouldn't be responding to that video. It would just be, those are the ethical consequences, the extrapolations that one would make from the belief that, yes, the state can force you to sacrifice your bodily autonomy for another person's life, even if you're
an example now.
I would have to think about it to think of some perfectly analogous ones. But then you have to wonder, what does it mean to be directly responsible for? After all, was the car driver really directly responsible for it? Wasn't it the person who like quickly changed lanes directly in front of them? What about direct responsibility with regards to firearm sales by corporations? What about direct responsibility with regards to opiate sales? What about advertisements that lead to an increase in the number of people who die from smoking or from sugar or from fat or from any of the other innumerable things that harm society?
So if you right, I get that. So what I'm saying is that if you directly do something that would force that person into a state of dependency, that's kind of where I draw the line. So like I could give you a scenario. Now this isn't completely analogous to abortion, but it's just the forced dependency that I'm talking about. So like say that if I had like a drug that nobody else had, say it's from fucking planet Krypton or some shit. I had this drug. I'm the only one who has it. Nobody else can get it. And I inject you with this serum or this poison or whatever, this drug. And then that forced that dependency. You are now forced on me to give you this drug, to keep supplying you with this drug. If I die, you die. You don't know where it is. You can't force it out of me. Now I'm the only person who has it. Now, if I and say that it was going to be like that for a certain period of time, right? Now, say that after a couple of days, you're like, yeah, you know what? I ain't feeling this shit. So I'm no longer going to provide this drug to you. And I stop giving you this drug, and then you die because of it. I am directly responsible for you dying. I murdered you 1,000%. I mean, you should be able to agree with that, right?
Sure. What about anti-maskers?
What about them?
Should the state be able to criminalize anti-maskers who don't provide whatever portion of their income is necessary to subsidize the medical needs of those around them who get COVID-19?
Sure. So you're talking about like I would have to wear a mask due to the government telling me that I have to wear a mask to help protect someone else?
No, not just that you would have to wear a mask, but if you didn't wear a
Yeah.
mask and somebody around you got sick, the government would like mandate that a stipend of your wages would be
How would they
provided.
know that I'm the person who got them sick?
If you live with a person or you co-work with a person, or you can use vector tracing, or like, yeah, there are ways to determine with reasonable
Well,
certainty.
the only way to get there, well, reasonable certainty versus actual certainty, for a mother aborting her kid. But okay, so to first of all, you'd have to go through a lot of steps here. So for one, you'd have to prove that I definitively did that, and the only way to definitively do that is the government would then have to also step in and force people to take tests, to mandatory to say, look, you have COVID or whatever.
Sure.
Which I think that I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Do you think that that's ethical, that we should allow the government to do that?
Under your system, I think that would be necessary because it would be the only way to allow contact tracing to determine who's responsible for infecting who. You're the one who wants state involvement in medical care. Like
Yeah.
you're the one who wants like the state to like overlook everything. I don't. So
No, I don't want the state to overlook everything. I want the state to make sure, or to have a law that we cannot kill each other.
well,
Right,
the
or
state.
kill
Well,
innocent
we
people.
do have that law currently. What you're looking to do
Yeah.
is criminalize people who decide not to sacrifice their bodily autonomy to preserve the lives of those who are harmed
No.
or at threat because of their actions. But you can extrapolate that really, really far. Now we could. Well, hold on, because we've been at it for an hour. I just want to say
you keep going.
we
Okay, go
can
ahead.
run down that forever, like that,
Yeah.
like line. I just want to say, as a libertarian, that I cannot conscionably like allow
Yeah.
the state to have that degree of involvement in people's rights. I think that bodily autonomy is virtually sacred. I think that
Yeah.
it's one of the very few things that we should absolutely and unambiguously defend under any context. And I think
Well, you don't believe that.
sure I do, with the exception of
You-
some
you-
like contractual sacrifices.
No, I already gave you like analogies that you said. Well, no, you absolutely. I gave you the skydiving analogy.
That's
you
not
even had
that's
an
not
analogy.
bodily autonomy. Saying I won't kill
wait a
you
minute,
and
wait a
then
minute, wait a
killing a person isn't bodily autonomy.
Okay. So you're saying, so even in your own analogy where you were talking about, oh well, if you're hanging off of this cliff or whatever, and I said, okay, if you, and this is how we got into the force thing. So don't forget about that. So when you were like, well, that was a contractual agreement. We agreed that I was going to hang this person over the edge, and I was like, okay, so what if you force that person over the edge? You
You're
force them
talking
into
about
that state of
murder.
dependency. Okay, exactly. So
No,
what I'm
but
saying is that
you're
what
literally
happens-
just pushing a
Bosh,
person
Bosh,
over a cliff.
Let me, Bosh, can I finish my thought here?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So what I said was that, Vosh, if you force this person over the edge, and then you said like almost without hesitation, you were like, absolutely, you should be charged because you forced that person into that state of dependency, and then you remove that dependency, and then they died because of it. Right?
I can't.
That is how. Well,
The-
go ahead. Well,
the
I want
idea
to make
that
sure I'm not strawmanning you.
a pregnancy and abortion are even remotely comparable to like directly murdering a person.
I'm talking about forcing someone into a state of dependency on your bodily autonomy.
These
We're
aren't
talking
bodily,
about
these
bodily
aren't
autonomy.
bodily autonomy
Wait,
arguments.
wait. Hold on. So you're saying that if I force, or if someone is hanging off of a cliff or the
You're
edge of
using
a rooftop
abstract
or whatever,
language because you know
I am
how distant these
holding
ideas
them.
are.
No, you just don't want to engage because you know that you're fucking wrong. That
No,
you would
it's
be
not
logically
bodily autonomy.
inconsistent.
Wait, this is like saying
No,
like if
hold
you
on.
point
So
a
what
gun
is
at a
bodily
person, it's
autonomy?
a
What is
violation of
bodily
bodily
autonomy?
autonomy to force them to not pull the trigger. Like this isn't a matter of bodily
Bosh,
autonomy.
what is bodily autonomy?
But with regards to like the philosophical,
What does bodily autonomy include?
bodily autonomy is like the preservation of an individual's right to do what they want to with their body, insofar as it doesn't violate the rights of others.
Okay, so tell me how, if someone is holding onto my arm, or I'm holding onto them actually, and I am holding them off of an edge, are you telling me that has nothing to do with bodily autonomy, even though they are completely dependent on my body?
No, that's really not a bodily autonomy issue. Again,
How is
like
it not?
if I pointed a gun at you and then you were
No,
like, dude, don't
stop
pull.
going into other analogies.
No, but this is how dumb it sounds.
Mine.
If I point a gun at you and you're like, dude, don't pull the trigger, and I'm like, you don't have any right over my bodily autonomy, and then I pull the trigger, like that's not a
That's
bodily.
not the same. That's not the same thing at all. Because
It's
I'm
not
not
a bodily
dependent-
autonomy
that
issue.
person. No, it is exactly. That's not a bodily autonomy issue because you're not dependent on that person's body for survival. In
You're
this
dependent on
analogy,
me not
bro,
pulling
you
the
are
trigger.
operating in such bad faith. So hold on. So you're saying that if somebody is hanging, if I am holding someone over the edge of a cliff, that is not any way, shape, or form related to bodily autonomy, even though that person right there is completely reliant on my body for survival. But you can't actually articulate how it's not.
What if the gun had a reverse trigger? So
Fuck the gun.
when I point the gun at you,
talk about what I'm talking about. Please
no,
engage with what I'm saying.
perfectly analogous. Hold on. What if the gun is a reverse trigger?
You can't even talk about my analogy. You can't even tell me how it's not. How it's
the same analogy, just with the nouns replaced. Okay.
Bro, if it's the same analogy, then go into my analogy. Tell me specifically.
If I point a gun at you, okay, and it has a reverse trigger, so I depress the trigger to prep the mechanism.
Worse than like Victoria Hammett. You're like the most bad faith arguer.
No, hold on. Okay, I want you to get behind this argument, okay? Because this is how dumb you.
I'm not getting behind shit.
Wait, this is how dumb you sound. Come on, let me.
What I said.
Wait,
Vosh, I have no problem.
This isn't bodily autonomy. It's just not. So all I can do is make fun of the absurdity of your example, and I was going to do it in a funny way. We were going to have a laugh together.
Hold on. So this is so. Wait a minute. So you're just appealing to ignorance. You don't know how it is, but you're just saying it's not.
You don't know how it isn't.
How is it not?
This isn't a bodily autonomy issue. This is just murder.
How is it not?
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Vosh,
I need you. I just want to know. I want to know.
Vosh, please. Vosh. I'm telling you, I will answer. I promise you. I promise to whatever God or whoever anybody believes in. I promise you that I will answer your question if you answer mine.
If you really want to get to it, if you really want to get to it, the answer is that you already violated their bodily autonomy by pushing them over the edge, and everything you do after that point is just a legal line between murder and attempted murder. If you really want to get to it, you already engaged in the violation.
Okay. So the thing that makes it so the thing that makes it not bodily autonomy in your mind is because you force that person into that state of dependency, right?
No, it's not because you force that person into a state of dependency. Oh my God. Okay.
You forced them to be there, right? Did you force them to be?
It's not.
You're saying it's because you did that. So in this exact
initial
example,
act was a crime. Yeah. Having sex isn't a crime.
Oh my God, Vosh. So hold on. So you're saying that if I removed this, if I said that I didn't push you over this edge or whatever, and then you did that of your own free will, and we had this agreement, and I just hanged you over there, then that would be bodily autonomy?
Like for you to let them go?
Sure.
Also, no. You engage in an informal contract at that point to not drop a person.
Okay, what if it's like damaging to me? It's hard for me to hold you up.
Like their arm is made of razor blades or something?
No, they're just heavy as shit. They weigh as much as I do. They're like 245 pounds.
And you're about to go over the edge? Then yeah, you would have a legal and moral right to drop them. Yeah, if they're going to kill both of you, then yeah.
I'm saying based off of bodily autonomy, right?
Well, I mean, based off a number of things.
Bodily autonomy, correct?
I don't know if that's a bodily autonomy issue or if that's more of like a utilitarian calculus issue.
So I feel like you just don't understand what bodily autonomy is.
No, I'm pretty sure. Wait, can I ask you my question?
So wait.
If I have a gun, you know those guns that have I don't know if they're called reverse triggers, but the gun only fires when the trigger gets pulled back out. Like depressing it only primes the mechanism, and then you let go of the trigger and it fires. You know what I mean? So if I point that gun at you and I pull the trigger and then I point the gun at you, and then at this point you are now relying, dead man switch, you are now relying on my bodily autonomy because I have to continue to depress this trigger. So, like, would it be a bodily autonomy issue? It's just murder. It's just murder with extra steps.
You're not relying on that's not what bodily autonomy is.
Wait, how is that not bodily autonomy?
No, because I am not dependent on your body at all.
Yeah, you are. You're dependent on my hand staying in a clenched position.
No. What I am dependent on, we're not even dependent, is that, well, I guess you would say dependent, but I'm dependent on you just not killing me. Right? I'm not actually, but the actual bodily autonomy piece of it, I'm not actually reliant on. So bodily autonomy, and then you actually talked about it. So bodily autonomy is the right to self-govern, right? You have the right to expel, you have the right to modify, you have the right to destroy, all of these things from your body, right? So it has nothing to do, you're going into so much disanalogy or so many disanalogous situations to try and have some, I don't know, some they're not the same. And if you don't understand that they're the same, I don't think that I can help you, right? Because I've talked about this multiple times. You do not understand what it's one of two things. Either A, you do not understand what bodily autonomy is, or B, you do understand what bodily autonomy is and you're just operating under complete intellectual dishonesty, right? So if you are saying that that by holding someone over the edge of a cliff, that if I choose to let them go, that has nothing to do with bodily autonomy. What I'm saying, my thing is that sure, bodily autonomy, but the right of that life, of that person's life, supersedes your right to bodily autonomy. That's my argument. But it's still absolutely 1000% is bodily autonomy or a bodily autonomy argument. You don't understand that, or you're just operating under bad faith. Either way, it is what it is.
I mean, I feel like this side of the argument is. I disagree, of course, but I feel like this side of the argument is irrelevant because we've already acknowledged the fact that you're comfortable with the state criminally penalizing people for not allowing their blood to be hooked up to friends who are injured in car accidents.
Now you're pivoting.
No. Wait, hold on. Wait, that's not a pivot. The argument we're currently having is a subset of that argument. That argument has already been made. You've already bitten the bullet on a social convention that I would never get behind.
Vosh, what's bodily autonomy?
Wait, how about you? I thought I answered this earlier. Why don't you tell me what bodily autonomy is?
Why is it not? I already told you what. I just explained to you what bodily autonomy was.
Wait, what? Can you repeat? I didn't hear.
Yeah, so bodily autonomy is based off of it's almost based off of property rights. Well, certain philosophers, John Locke and all these other people, kind of base it off of that. But it's the right to self-govern, right? So when it comes to your body specifically, you have the right to evict anything from your body, on or in your body. You have the right to evict. You have the right to modify. You have the right to use. You have the right to secure your body, to alienate your body, to modify, destroy, whatever. You have all of these rights. This is based off of bodily autonomy. I mean, I could give you a study if you want to really understand what bodily autonomy is.
It's a philosophical concept, not a biological.
Yeah, sure. No, well, I could give you what other philosophers would kind of denote to being bodily autonomy.
Bodily autonomy means that you have a right to evict stuff from your body. It seems like
yes. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. However, what you believe is that the right to bodily autonomy must always supersede another person's right to life, even if you force that person into a state of dependency, which when you have bitten the bullet on that one, I would never get behind that.
Yeah, well, that's because I'm pro-choice.
Well, I mean, I just find it to be immoral. But what I'm saying is that if you force someone to be in a state of dependency, like I just provided here, which you don't want to say is bodily autonomy because you know it would be fucking insane.
The cliffside thing is completely disanalogous. It's 100% disanalogous to anything.
Not bodily? Okay,
but we already addressed the larger argument here. We already addressed
I'm not even going to go into that. I'm not even going to go into that. But this is what I'm going to say is because at this point we're kind of this is kind of like circular.
I think we already addressed. Fundamentally, we already addressed like the underlying difference that we have in like you think that it's okay for the state to like peer down into people's bedrooms and make sure that there are situations where they can like criminally penalize people for a straw man. There are literally back alley abortions that take place. You literally want that to happen. Yeah. As long as it's being done to help other people. Huh?
I don't want them to be done.
Well, you want the state to arrest people.
I actually used to have a stance on that to where actually someone who was pro-choice that kind of made me think about that. But yeah, I used to say that I don't give a shit if they are having back alley abortions because they're killing of a person. But if they don't know that they're killing a person, which I find is just more of an educational thing, should they be charged with the same crime of murder? Maybe not, because intent does matter. Because intent does matter. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is that I'm going to kind of just dead this whole thing. But this is the reason why, Vosh, and I told you that we would need to come back to this really quickly, is that this is the reason why we got into the whole talking about is it force or is it not force? Because in this scenario, when I gave this scenario to you before, you were like, okay, but the problem is that you force that person over that cliff. And I said, okay, you force that person into that state of dependency on you. So if you remove that dependency, that would be killing them. Or I'm sorry, and if they died, you would then be killing them. And then you said yes. And then I said, okay, so do you not agree that pregnancy forces a life into being? And you said, no, that does not force a life into being, even though you kind of also did. Because when I gave you that analogy when it comes to, or I gave you that thought experiment of having a button and pressing the button and all these other things, you're like, well, no.
I don't think force means any product of your actions, like any consequential or like anything that results. I don't think like causality and force mean the same thing.
Yeah, but Vosh, force, when we're talking about force just means that you achieve or you brought about something through efforts of your own.
Yeah, but right? Usually that's in the context of like a deliberate attempt. Usually force implies intent or like will. Usually people who get abortions didn't mean to have like fetuses growing in them.
Vosh, I don't really care what some parts of society want it to be or what you want it to be. I'm talking about
what? We're talking about the definition of words. Wait.
Yes, we're talking. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about the definition. You were trying to manipulate the definition in any way, shape, or form. I'm telling you,
no, I'm not manipulating. Well, okay, hold on. Wait. Did you do in the example I gave you earlier, the analogy? Did you force your friend in? The car one.
Yeah.
Did you force that
Yeah.
person into a comatose and medically dependent state?
Did you force them into a state?
Yeah. Was that you forcing them?
Actions of your own?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. We already talked to you about that.
Okay, I don't think that would constitute force. I think that you brought them to that state. I don't think that it would be forcing them into that state. I think that word carries connotations that aren't present.
Sure. Okay, so to be fair, to force them into a state of dependency more so, this is why that analogy isn't as it's not as analogous as you would really need it to be. I'm not saying that in that analogy you are being intellectually dishonest. That's
What's
not
the
what I'm saying.
difference? Wait, how is it not? If that's forcing, then
Gosh, I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you. But what I'm saying is that it's not exactly the same, just because when you're talking about pregnancy, that person is already you connected that you quote unquote connected that person to you, right? For this to really be analogous to your this thing with the friend and whatever, I would have had to have like forced them to be connected to me, right? And they had no say in it.
Did you force them into a state of dependency?
Again, sure.
Yeah, we just disagree on what the meaning of force.
Hold on. Let me finish my thought here. So okay. What I'm saying is, and I thought I said this before, but I guess I didn't. So if I didn't, then it's fine. I'll just reiterate it. So okay. So for this to be analogous, right? That friend is basically you're equating to the fetus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that for this to be analogous, you would have to say, okay, so I put them into that state of dependency because I physically connected them, or I connected them to me, right? They had no choice. They had no choice whether they were going to be connected to me or not. The same way that a fetus has no choice whether they're going to be there. It is a biological function. They have no, they're not acting of their own conscious and voluntary will, right? It is completely subconscious. So this here, I connected them to me. Now they're connected. And I force them to be in a state of dependency on me. Now, if I remove that cable at any point in time, if I remove that cable or whatever you want to say, and they, knowing that they will die, and they did die, then yes, I absolutely killed them. That is what would make it analogous. And if you don't see how that's making it analogous, I don't really know what to tell you.
But you could try and tell me how it's not. The connection didn't happen while you were awake. The connection happened while you were under. That was done by doctors without your consent.
How is it done by doctors without my consent?
You were asleep. You were still conked on the head.
Right. Again, Vosh. So hold on. So Vosh. So when you're talking about pregnancy, that person, that mother, I mean, also the father, but the mother's the only person who can get pregnant. So we're only talking about her. So that mother is the person that forced that fetus to be quote unquote connected to her body. I'm saying to make it analogous to what your scenario is, you personally, that person who caused that accident, that person would have had to have connected themselves to that other person, to the person that you hit.
Dude, mothers don't connect,
and they had no say in it.
Mothers don't connect their womb tubes to fertilized eggs. That happens without their consent.
Oh my god.
Wait, you realize mothers don't deliberately do that, right? Like they don't concentrate and like squint their forehead and like the tubes connect, right? That just happens. There's no pregnancy button. It happens. So you wake up and the doctor well, wait, we've already gone over this. Hold on. Wait. Oh my God, there are so many elements to the abortion debate. We didn't even get to the person and stuff, which I don't know if anyone wants to hear about.
It doesn't really. There's also the social.
There's also the fact that societies which allow abortion are like objectively better because abortion is an effective way of population control, and families that can't take care of additional kids generally need abortion as a way. I
don't look at it as in a utilitarian standpoint like you do. I look at it as an individual, on an individual level that you can.
An individual level isn't a moral philosophy. What do you mean? You're a deontologist?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm a deontologist, but I would say that certain things should be are just wrong. Yeah, absolutely, could be deontologically wrong. So, like, I would say that that a 40-year-old having sex with a 10-year-old is deontologically wrong.
Well, you can justify that through utilitarianism as well.
So wait. Hold on. So are you saying that? And I'm not trying to strawman you. So you tell me if I'm misrepresenting you here. Are you saying that now, because your argument was bodily autonomy, but okay, but are you saying that it's now for the good of the rest of the people? So you're like one of those people who's like, okay, if you can sacrifice one person to save 1,000, you're like, well, we should do that. We should kill that person.
No, that's your argument, not my argument.
It's not my argument at all.
Your argument is violating bodily autonomy for the life of other people. That's not my argument.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So anyway, so we're definitely getting circular here. But again,
I think
I
we
just want
derive a strong utilitarian benefit from ensuring the bodily autonomy of every citizen in our country.
okay. So you're just saying that it's in your in your moral framework or whatever. You were saying that or your conclusion that it's just a healthy consequence of bodily autonomy.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything that I advocate for
Okay.
would be something that has healthy consequences, I would hope.
No, yeah, I get that. But you're saying that, like, it's, for instance, like if bodily autonomy wasn't your argument, you wouldn't just say, oh, well, we should still do it because it will have these net benefits to the rest of society.
If bodily autonomy and its legal protections had a negative impact on society, then I wouldn't defend it. But I think they do have a positive impact, so.
So it doesn't matter if it's a negative impact on an individual. It just matters that it's negatively affects society as a whole.
Well, we're talking about laws here. Laws have to be aggregated to average out the general good and general harm that they do.
Yeah.
Even very good laws can sometimes individually hurt people. Like it's just a matter of what broad effect it has.
No, I'm understanding, but can you answer my question?
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah. So I'm asking you if, like, if bodily autonomy wasn't your argument. I understand that it is your argument, but what I'm trying to get at is that are you one of those people who believes that do you believe that the ends justify the means?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so are you that person who would say that, look, we should kill one person to save however many, or are you not that person?
No, because there are overlapping levels of utilitarian analysis that you can use to justify
Okay.
social rules, which individually may seem to be detrimental from a utilitarian perspective, but collectively
Okay.
end up having a great social benefit. So an example of that would be an advocacy for bodily autonomy. You could conceivably play trolley problem and save 5 people's
Yeah.
lives with the
Mhm.
organs of one healthy person who was otherwise going to live, but you don't want to do that because bodily autonomy is very important, and if you defend it, you get benefits down the line in other ways. It's like
Sure. So real
stopping
quick,
abuses of the state.
yeah. So real quick, and I know this isn't directly related to abortion, but I'm honestly just curious. So in that I mean, everyone has we've gone through that in just about every college, every philosophy class. But so okay, so in that scenario, would you go ahead and, like, if you're hitting 5 people, but you could make that decision to kill one person instead of 5, would you do that?
Um, so the trolley problem is interesting not because of what it is, but because of we project onto it. I think it would rather one person die than 5. But the
See, I
question
wouldn't.
is, are there other ways in which that in which that situation can be extrapolated into societal consequences? Like, for example, organ harvesting.
Mm.
Once you get into lines like that, then all of a sudden you don't want to do it because then you're violating something else. So the rule consequence for, like, the trolley problem would be don't stand on the tracks and let the fewest number of people on the tracks die. But in reality, like, the broader philosophical context makes it a lot more complicated. I would say that in the trolley problem itself, in a vacuum, in a philosophical issue on its own, I would say
Yeah.
yes, pull the lever. But when you apply that to societal logic, I wouldn't, because there could be rule consequences down the line. Does that make
Sure,
sense?
I understand. I understand. Yeah, I absolutely understand what you're saying. I still would not do that at all. Like that was almost immediate when someone first, like, brought that issue to me. I was like, no, absolutely, you can't do that at all.
What's your logic?
So my, and again, like, we're really talking about philosophy, so there's really no right or wrong answer on this, right? Or at least on this question, it's
Only
just
how
what.
well you can justify your answer.
Sure, maybe. So to me, like, you made, so if I woke up on this train, right? For anyone who doesn't know this, so you wake up on this train of no fault of your own. It's not your train, but somehow you wake up there, and the train is going fucking 1,000 miles an hour, whatever, and it's gonna hit these fucking 5 people, right? Or you could switch it. You could make the conscious decision to switch it, and then it'll only kill one person. So my thought process is that, okay, and I'm not saying I'm a fate guy, right? But I will say that, look, if I do nothing, right? If I do not, I didn't put myself here. It is of no fault of my own. I am about to hit 5 people, right? Those people are just destined to die now, right? Now, if I make the conscious decision to go ahead and switch to the other track, sure, I am going to kill less people. However, I'm now going to kill someone who otherwise would not have been killed if I didn't make that conscious decision to do so.
It sounds like you delineate a moral distinction between killing things and letting them die.
What do you mean?
It seems like there's a difference to you morally between killing a thing and allowing it to die.
Sure, 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 sure.
Okay,
So for
I
instance,
agree.
like if yeah, I think that we agree on that. So like for instance, if it's of no fault of my own, right? If I didn't do anything to put them there in that first place. So for instance, if I was walking by and somebody was hanging off the side of a cliff and is about to die, or someone's fucking drowning, right? Like I don't have, or at least I don't believe that you have a responsibility. Definitely shouldn't have a legal responsibility to go in there and save that person, right? However, if they are drowning because you fucking threw them off of a fucking boat and now they can't fucking swim, then yeah, I would say that you do have a responsibility to attempt to save them. And if you do not save them, then you fucking kill them. Like I think that you and I could agree on that basic principle, right?
Um, I definitely think there's a difference between killing something and allowing them to die. Yeah, I think we have different levels of responsibility based on the
Yeah.
degree to which we're culpable in a person's death.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So
in
here's
a
so here's
very
where I'm
pretty
gonna
massive
kind
way.
of end this. Yeah, I think that we could probably kind of end this just because we've been going for a while now. But I just want to kind of summarize. Obviously, I believe you to be at least through this debate, I believe you to be kind of intellectually dishonest in a couple of points when we were talking about bodily autonomy. You don't think that anything has to do with bodily autonomy if you hang someone over the edge of a cliff when they are completely reliant on your body for survival. You also didn't, even though I gave you the scenario when I was talking about, look, if you had a button, you press this button, so on and so forth, this will happen. You're like, yes, through your own effort, you did bring about that conclusion, which definitionally would be force, and you could directly compare that to pregnancy. But you really just special pleading on that, and you don't want to apply that circumstance to pregnancy for whatever reason. But I would say that I do appreciate the conversation that you did have with me. Even if we fundamentally disagree, I think that conversations like this are incredibly important to move people forward at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. I generally don't like abortion arguments because I feel like it's really annoying, but I feel like at the end of the day, everybody is privately arguing the personhood argument. That's been my experience at least. The personhood argument is like what
Yeah,
everyone's kind of quietly shadow boxing.
yeah.
And then the bodily autonomy argument is just the stuff that because you can establish more of a legal precedent, so there's more to actually argue. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
mean,
find bodily autonomy argument to be interesting. I think that there's two arguments that people typically are going with now. It's bodily autonomy and like sentience and like consciousness. Right? They're like, oh well, it is a person.
yeah, I mean,
At this point,
for the
at this
record,
point,
I don't think a fetus is a person. I think that personhood is an emergent characteristic or a set of emergent properties
why
which
don't you
arise
think
from
it's a person?
interaction with an environment. Huh?
Why don't I mean it's not going to matter to your bodily autonomy argument because whether it's a person or not is irrelevant. But just for the sake of just understanding your view, like why don't you think that it's a person?
The idea to me that we should, so a zygote has essentially no
Yeah,
consciousness. A fetus has a
sure.
middling consciousness, which is significantly less than that of your average house pet.
Okay.
The idea that these things are human in biology is true. In practice, in philosophy, are they
Mhm.
persons? I don't
Yeah.
necessarily agree. Many people will argue, well, you should assign these people the rights and responsibilities of a human being anyway, because they will be a full person in the future. But then you have to wonder, then you start to get into anti-natalism arguments. You say that you force a fetus into existence by having sex. Well, life is full of suffering. Is it ethical to force a being into existence knowing that its life will be miserable? Should people be arrested by the state for having children if they have like below a certain level of income? You get into some really interesting questions about the moral culpability of future
Mhm.
perception. So my argument
Right.
for this is really simple. You can't really know what point an emergent property like consciousness emerges in like an entity like a fetus. So it's probably the easiest to just set a cutoff point. It's arbitrary, it's quick, it's clean, it's dirty. Birth. Just cut it there. Kapam,
Okay.
person, you know?
Okay. Wait. Okay. So right. So are you saying that you're saying, well, it's birth because I don't know when personhood starts?
Nobody can. I don't think it's possible to know. So I think that you
No,
have
no,
to
no. I'm
designate
saying, well,
arbitrary.
people believe that they know. They may not agree, but I'm just saying, like, in your mind, you're like, well, look, I don't know when personhood begins, or at least I don't have a belief of when personhood begins. So because of that, I'm going to say birth.
I believe it is unknowable. So I think that birth is probably the easiest social like line to draw. Maybe it's a few days before birth, maybe it's years afterwards. I
See,
genuinely don't know.
I believe the opposite. I believe that it would definitely be conception. I believe that that is I believe that that is the most logical conclusion.
That yeah, that argument has always just been preposterous to me. It's the
Well,
easiest one.
It's not really, well, it's easy because I mean it makes the most logical sense,
They don't have
right?
a
If you're talking
conscious
about,
experience at that age. They aren't even an
oh,
age.
but again, okay, so hold on. So then your argument is that it needs to be is consciousness.
Well, no, that consciousness is an emergent characteristic developed by engagement
It's an
with like external.
it's an arbitrary characteristic, right? So if
Well, of
conception is when
course.
that new distinct yeah, so if conception is when that new distinguishable like human organism is created, right? Any expansion of that organism, when you talk about sentience, pain, birth, even, is completely arbitrary, right? If we go from a zygote to an embryo to a fetus to a neonate outside the womb to an adolescent, every single milestone after conception is just part of a human person's developmental process,
A
right?
human's developmental process. I don't know
Yeah,
about a person.
a human's developmental process. Okay, sure. So a human's developmental process, but because of that, the most logical conclusion of when personhood starts would be the beginning of that new organism's life. I mean, we don't
Not if
even
you
stop
believe it's an emergent
biological.
characteristic based on engagement with the external stimuli. If you believe that, then it can't be at that point. There's no way that a zygote can even have external experiences.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that that doesn't matter, and nobody can really articulate how that
Well,
would
wait,
matter, how that would
just
make a
because a
person a person.
philosophical criteria is difficult to draw clean lines around doesn't mean that it's an invalid philosophical criteria. We know
Oh no,
we know biologically, we know that zygotes or like fertilized eggs don't have
yeah,
conscious experiences. We know that they don't have the parts to do it.
sure,
And we
sure.
know that well, I guess you guys don't know that I do. I do. I hope you believe me. At some point between A and B, we develop something that people call a consciousness. But this concept is as much philosophical as it is linguistic. It's not biological. It's not a zygote. It is me. We have to draw a line somewhere. And it so happens that like whatever criteria I assign personhood for,
Yeah.
it just makes the most sense to draw that line out at birth. That's
To
my
you,
argument.
it makes the most sense
Yeah,
at birth. To me,
yeah,
it
for
makes
me.
the most sense
But
at
you know
conception.
what?
Because again, when it comes to consciousness specifically, I don't even understand this. There are many arguments that are, I guess you would quote unquote say, better pro-choice arguments. I would say the bodily autonomy argument is one of the better ones. I still think that it's a shitty one. I understand that you don't believe that I just like debunked your fucking bodily autonomy argument. I completely do, and I'm sure that my followers will. But I'm sure that your followers and all of leftist TikTok is going to think that I got on. But
We're
that's neither
trying to
here
be
nor there.
civil here. Come on.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
No,
If they are
I just want to
if they
say,
are
by the way,
civil,
if
thumbs up.
you said that I acted in bad faith in this conversation, I just want you to know I am at my chillest during abortion conversations because these are philosophical. You want to debate institutional racism with me? That
Yeah,
conversation is going to be
is that going to
contentious.
trigger you?
No, oh, no, I'm usually not the one who gets mad in those conversations. Um,
I don't really get mad. The only thing that frustrates me, like, it's not so much that I get mad, I get frustrated when people will either they refuse to answer my question and they are continuing to dodge the question and try to bring up other scenarios as you have done in this debate.
I thought your
Um,
analogies were just disanalogous, so I
I,
tried
I
to. I think I
and I
explained
believe
why I thought that too.
sure. Sure. And I believe that yours were completely disanalogous, and I explained why, right? So again, I think that we just have this
But you
fundamental
wait,
disagreement.
but at the end you acknowledged that my main analogy was analogous. The one with the car accident, you acknowledged that they were analogous enough that you do believe the state should penalize people who decided not to detach or to decide to detach themselves and not provide their bodily resource to that person. You say my arguments are
Yeah.
disanalogous, but you agreed with like the main one that I was using.
Well, hold on. Well, that wasn't really the main one. I mean,
No,
we've kind of
that
focused
was the
the most
main
part. But
one, yeah.
okay. But
And
what
you
I'm
bit the
saying is
bullet on it too.
that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is that when you're talking about that, if you are directly responsible for, again, this is going to be like the sixth time that we've gone into this, so I'm not going to really go in too far. But that's what she said. But or that's what he said. But anyway, so yeah, so it doesn't really matter. Like when you're talking about if you are directly responsible for the killing of that person, then yeah, that's where we kind of just, I don't know, we just don't agree. It's like, well, if you are responsible for the killing of that person, I believe that you should be penalized,
If you go
for
far
that.
back
But
enough, why even be personally responsible with them? What if we had a society where everybody was sort of raised into a social contract where they acknowledged that their
yeah,
life was equally valuable to the lives of everyone around them? So anytime in that instance, anytime a person's life could be sacrificed to save a number of people's lives greater than their own, they would just be expected to do it and criminally penalized if they didn't. That might actually end up being a better society than ours, depending on how it was handled, but the idea
mhm,
terrifies me. I like the fact that at the end of the day, people are ultimately self-reliant. I think that's a good
yeah.
thing. I'm scared of the potential legal and philosophical consequences of moving away from that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this too, because you had two things that I saw that you mentioned a little while ago that I want to kind of shed some light on. So you said that in one video that you had, you said that uh, that based on the pro-life argument, you're saying, look, if a change in diet, could could decrease like miscarriages by like 20 or 30%. Like, yeah, you forgot to bring that one up.
We didn't even get. Damn, that's such a good one too. Fuck, we missed.
Hey, I'm bringing it up right now. So like, don't want to spend too much time just because we've been on here. I don't know how long, hour and a half, fucking 2 hours. I don't know. But anyway, so you're like, look, if a change in diet could decrease miscarriage by 20 or 30%, is it murder or negligible homicide at least if you don't eat a certain way? Do you stand by that question, right?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question.
Agreed. I absolutely believe that is an interesting question. So my answer to you, I don't know if any pro-lifers actually answered you, so I'm just going to answer you. So I would say no, because I mean, you have most studies, or at least most studies will conclude that by eating like ultra processed foods like cereals, processed meats, or fucking biscuits, that you drastically increase your chances of cancer. But so by the premise that you're setting, like it's like letting your kid eat like fucking Captain Crunch should be considered a crime. Right. I find that to be just completely impractical. You're not required to give your kid the most nutritious meal possible.
What if a fetus dies because of like really poor health habits on the part of the mother?
Yeah. What if what kind of health choices? By what she's eating?
What they're eating, like maybe they're not getting enough nutrients because they're bulimic or anorexic, in which case the fetus could be starved out, malnutrition. It could be that they're not eating anything with like nutrients in it. It could be they use drugs. There are a lot of things.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're using drugs, absolutely. But if you're talking about what you are eating, so I'm specifically talking about like what you are eating. So like if what you're eating, again, what you're eating goes into like the child like feeds off of those nutrients, right?
I would believe so.
Yeah, I mean, we're not fucking scientists, but I mean, it sounds right?
I imagine so. I don't know how directly the diet of the mother affects the fetus.
But for you and I who aren't fucking medical experts, I mean that fucking makes sense, right? That what you're eating, like the child then feeds off of those nutrients in the womb.
Yeah, I don't know what else they'd be getting.
Yeah, exactly. So so it's the same thing. Like if they were outside of the womb, like again, you are not, I don't believe that you have that responsibility, definitely at least not a legal responsibility that you should have to give your kid. Like, it's like you're not forced to give your kid like a fucking vegan diet or some crazy diet that would definitely give them the best chance, because there's always going to be another food also that is going to increase or decrease the chances of this. So like if you eat this, I think I came across one study. I think Harvard cited it actually. I came across one study that showed that there were for each I think it's 10%, for every 10% that you an increase in your like ultra processed foods, which they agree to be like cereals, processed meats, biscuits, shit like that, that there was like a 12% increase in the chance of like fucking cancer, like actual cancer. You know what I mean? For every 10% increase that you consumed these specific types of foods, right? So then you would also have to say, it's like, okay, so if you fed your kid, or allowed your kid at least to eat Cap'n Crunch, which is fucking incredible, by the way, go to cereals. So if you allow your kid to eat like Cap'n Crunch or whatever, then when if your kid dies,
so you're essentially your argument is that you couldn't.
It's like
your argument is that you couldn't hold the mother responsible because you wouldn't want to criminalize them for eating things that they would otherwise be expected to have the kid eat. But if they did things that the kid couldn't do, okay, I don't know if that's necessarily a good argument.
Is that fair?
Well, it's definitely a cohesive argument. I'd have to think about it because I haven't heard that counter argument. Okay. We've been going for about an hour 45, which is an impressive length of time to dedicate to a subject like this. I have a dentist appointment later today, which is going to inflict upon my mouth terror, which might make it a little difficult for me to schedule something immediately after. But I hope that soon we can talk about institutionalized racism, because after I blew some Nazis the fuck out on that subject, who I think would agree with most of your points. You blew some
Nazis the fuck out?
Yeah. That's like
they're
half the
legitimate
channel.
Nazis, or are you just saying that they are?
No. Yeah, legitimate Nazis. Oh, yeah, they'd put you in a camp.
Dude, I did see one thing. One thing that I definitely want to say is that I saw I saw you debate. Was it abortion that you were? No, you were debating. I think institutional racism on. Was it modern debates when it was like you and Destiny versus those other
Yeah,
two guys?
those two were the Nazis. Yeah, that was James Allsup and Eric
I wouldn't
Streicher.
say at very least, I would say that the one guy, there was one guy who wasn't showing his face, and there was one guy who is showing his face.
Right.
So I wouldn't necessarily, based on what I saw, I didn't see the entire thing, but I saw most of it. Based on what I saw, I wouldn't say that that guy specifically was a Nazi,
Man,
but there were some questionable things that I was, especially like anytime that someone brings up the 1350, I've debunked that so many times, bro. I'm like, bro, stop, and especially for conservatives, I'm like, you're making us look bad. Stop doing that. You know what I mean? But
it's a surprising degree of charitability. I mean, you can look into their backgrounds; they're full on like Jew posting, like Jewish question, Holocaust denial, like the whole nine yards.
What do you mean? Really?
Yeah, there are a lot of people like that online. A lot of them.
I don't know any. I never looked into them.
You probably have quite a few in your audience too. They tend to congregate around conservative demagogues, you know. Though they may disagree with some of
obviously, I denounce any type of Nazi shit.
Sure, yeah, we just got a lot of it around these days. We all got to be careful, you know.
I hear what you're saying, man. But again, Vosh, even though we came to a disagreement here, man, and we were not able to find that, well, we were able to find some common ground on a couple of things, but not the main, I guess, core argument, which is okay. I hope that at least that I was able to at least give you something that was at least interesting as far as arguments go. At least at the very end, when you were talking about your miscarriage by 20 or 30%, at least you said that, hey, well, that's actually an interesting argument or whatever. So yeah, man. So I definitely appreciate your time. I appreciate you accepting the debate. Yeah, I am down to come back on after I'm finished my institutional racism, research and all that. I'll reach out to you, and then you can schedule it whenever you feel necessary.
All right. Yeah, that should be easy enough. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on. Though abortion topics are always interesting. I always love these conversations. I'm always happy to have them. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
You too.
All right. Peace. All right, we did it. Go team. I feel like I was on good form that one. I said before that abortion is the most boring topic. Wrong! Veganism is the most boring topic. This is the second most boring topic. Nicely done, people. I think I was in good form there. Never talking about abortion again, I say. Even though I'm probably going to in like a week. That was a fun talk, though. I had fun. You were too nice, though. One of the reasons I don't like abortion discussions is because usually the arguments are wiggly enough, there's usually enough variance in them that it's really, really difficult to find big pop-off moments. But next debate's going to be systemic racism, so we'll see how that one goes. Half of fertilized eggs ever implant, yeah there's a lot of, You have to develop some kind of debate tactic to break the fucking hour-long circular arguments. Yeah, possibly. But in the end, I'm actually really satisfied with how that argument went, because he had to bite the bullet. He had to bite the bullet and say that he had to bite the bullet and acknowledge that he would advocate for like the state criminally penalizing you, not medically holding out on the friend, which that's more than I normally get. Usually I just get incoherent screaming. Also, I thought about that reptile argument midway through, but it's actually really, really interesting, because to him, he said the difference between killing something and letting something die was really important to him. For me, an abortion is letting something die. You're detaching it from your body. That's what you're attempting to do. But if you lay eggs like a reptile, then you're always letting them die. Like, because they're detached from your body, you have to upkeep them afterwards by like sitting on them or whatever. Why don't you say that? I did say that. Anyway, yeah. I thought about that midway through. I think I'm going to use that more in the future because I'm really interested. The thing is, I said this before. I said this while talking with him, but this is 100% the case, okay? Get ready for it, okay? Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a shit about the bodily autonomy argument. Nobody does. Nobody pays attention to it, okay? Everybody just is privately in their head, they're doing the personhood argument, okay? In their head, it's all about whether or not it's morally wrong for a fetus to die. That's what everyone's doing in their head. I do it a little bit too, because I don't think that zygotes and fetuses are persons. I don't think that. I try to make the bodily autonomy arguments outside of that, because I don't think that political policy. I don't think that like stuff like that should hinge on these highly esoteric and very often religiously justified definitions of personhood. But yeah, it always gets muddled up in that. Unfortunately, there are just no satisfying answers for the personhood thing because it's like I think personhood is when the entity has the unique DNA. Okay, I think personhood is an emergent characteristic developed through experience. Okay, like, all right. Consciousness isn't really something that we can ever understand. Unfortunately, consciousness as a philosophical concept is one of those things we might never be able to understand. Consciousness is like it's like a little window out into the universe, you know? You can see other people's windows, but you can never see out from them. But until you see out from one, you never know what you're looking at. You can see, like, the window into another person's consciousness by how they behave, but you can never see out from their end. You don't know what's behind the window. You can only see the window, which means it's not possible to know. I don't know if it's ever possible to know, really. Like, I think solipsism, or like the concept of the philosophical zombie, might always be a thing. Why is that scary? Well, that's scary depending on how you think about philosophy. I guess some people find it alienating because they're never going to be able to truly know other people. You can talk to people and listen to people, but like what's going on out here is a fraction of what's going on in here. Really the best solution is just to be open and communicative with other people. Yeah. I can't believe you believe that letting somebody die isn't the same as killing them. What happened to utilitarian calculus? So utilitarian calculus is something that I say kind of as a meme. In reality, utilitarian consideration involves an overlapping series of rule obligations. Even an act utilitarian would have to acknowledge the fact that there are broader consequences to behaviors which may be, like, in a specific instance, good. I can give you a really, really easy example. If you live anywhere in the developed world, your money is worth infinitely more to a poor person than it is to you, okay? Like, if you have, like, $20 in your wallet, that $20 to you is worth nothing compared to $20 in the hands of a homeless person. That's like 5 days of them getting to live compared to you. But are you morally obligated to give all the money that you have, with the exception of that which you need to survive, to other people? I would say that you're not. Because at the end of the day, I think when you engage in that kind of behavior... Now, hold on. It's moral to do it. Hold on. It's moral to do it. You should do it if you... Like, that's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do. But, like, realistically speaking, nobody lives their life that way. And there's a reason for that. And I think that fundamentally it's because humans are self-interested, and I think that society behaves generally pretty well when you take that into account. Society and building a good society are all about incentives. The incentive structure is all about making a good society. Everything is about incentives, okay? From feudalism to tribal societies to modern-day neoliberal capitalism, everything is about that incentive structure, baby. You want to make a good incentive structure, okay? And the fact of the matter is that it's much better to address these big systemic issues through an appropriately incentivized manner than it is to morally expect everyone to engage in huge amounts of self-sacrifice. That's not as effective. It's not as effective. It doesn't do as well, and I think it leads to, like, really weird dick waving where people are like, haha, I donated 3/4 of my paycheck to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Hold on. Sorry, humans all being inherently self-interested just isn't based on reality, though. Well, it is depending on how far back you draw the line. There are selfless people, but selfless people are selfless because they enjoy doing things for other people. They're satisfying their own personal internal moral criteria. If you want to get, like, really, like, egoist with it, you have to recognize the fact that at the end of the day, humans are only capable of doing things that they want to do. Even if it's a choice between two despicable, terrible things you don't want to do, you're the only one controlling your own neural synapses. You know, you're doing all the things that you do, even through coercion, even through torture and murder and everything else horrible life has to throw at you. You're the one in control of your own brain. I guess if you want to get some transhumanist bent, you can change that, but fundamentally that's how people tend to be. So the goal is incentive structures. You want to build society in such a way that people want to do selfless things to other people. That's the goal. And they would do it in a selfish way, you know? But does it matter, like, whether or not a person's doing things for other people because they like doing things for other people, or because it's some sort of ascetic personal self-sacrifice? It's all mixed and complicated, but But altruism, altruism, I'm talking about altruism here. My dudes, guys, if there's a guy who derives a ton of personal self-sacrifice, his brain, sorry, not self-sacrifice, there are personal self-enjoyment from the brain chemicals that he gets when he helps other people, who the fuck cares if he's doing it to help his brain chemicals? He probably doesn't think he's doing it to help his brain chemicals. If a person's going around wait, hold on. Vosh, no, humans tend towards mutual benefit before society. This doesn't invalidate what I was saying. Wait, oh no, people don't understand what I'm talking about again, and I'm gonna have to explain. I'm not saying that all humans are inherently selfish. I'm saying that the entire... Okay, why do you think social animals get along with one another? It's because evolution designed their brains in such a way as to incentivize on an internal level them engaging with others in a mutually beneficial way. That's why social animals are smarter than non-social animals. That's why lizards are dumb and cats and humans are smart. It's because cats and humans form like social societies which involve like, yeah, it's self-interest isn't selfishness. These aren't the same thing. I think a lot of people are hearing like dumb libertarian takes in my head. Yeah, this is self-interest and selfishness are completely separate things. Okay, like I'll give you guys an example. Remember when oh, my PAC, upcoming PAC. I want to donate money to a political action committee, okay? I want to donate money to it, like a lot of money, maybe 200,000, let's say $250,000 for my own money, flat out from my bank account, $250,000, okay? Is that a selfish thing of me to do, to spend $250,000 of my own dollars to potentially help like a progressive get into candidacy? Like, is that a selfish thing to do? I would say most reasonable people would say no. I mean, it's $250,000. I could buy any car I wanted. I could buy a house. I could buy anything. Well, not anything, but it's not selfish. It is self-interested. It is in my self-interest to do this. Do you know why? Because if I do it, when I do it, I'm going to get brain chemicals. Whoosh. Whoosh. I'm going to get brain chemicals. The world will benefit because ideally we can get a progressive in office, and that makes the brain chemicals. Whoosh. Whoosh. The brain chemicals. Yeah. Whoosh. And also, frankly, it fulfills a lot of social obligations that I have with you guys, because I promised you that I'd do it, and you're all going to wide people happy me into oblivion once I actually do it. And whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I see the wide people happy, the serotonin activation. Whoosh. Yeah. I hope you guys understand that the best thing in the world is when people derive pleasure from helping one another. I hope you guys understand that's like the best thing, right? That's like, that's the goodest thing. Okay, what do you want? Everyone who helps every other person being like this ascetic, like miserable, like I don't enjoy any of this, but I got it. Like, no, come on, we should be having fun. Let's yeah. People wide. There are many different psychological theories of altruism. I just wanted to explain that what I was describing was not the same as your standard capitalist, right libertarian, all humans are selfish. Like, that's how society works. All humans are selfish. So, like, we should just, like, let society be like, so the selfish people can do whatever they want. Because that's how selfish, the people are selfish. Which is not true. The reason why humans are strong is because of collaborative behavior. But collaborative behavior is self-interested. That's the social contract. You think human beings got to where they were because we're all individualistic, atomized, like libertarians running free in the forest? Fuck no. Everything that we built, everything worthwhile was because humans came together and worked on shit. And got along, at least for some length of time. How did we get on this from abortion? Tempest, include this in the abortion cut, okay? I know you're watching right now. Include... This goes in there too, okay? Just fuck it. Throw them all in there, okay? Yeah, socialism is a matter of self-interest too. I want to be clear about that, by the way. It really frustrates me when, like, capitalists or right-leaning people are like, I don't want to do socialism because I'm not because I'm self-interested. Like, why would I want socialism when I only care about myself? Like, well, hey, man, socialism's everyone's benefit. Come on. Come on. Come on.